everyone, Agnes here, and I have got another interview for you. Today it is with Jason. Hello, Jason.
Hello, hello. Hello
Nice
from the
to
UK.
thank you. Yes, and nice to see you again because you and I have done already 2 interviews together, and
Oh,
we said it would be time to do another one. Now, little bit of background about you. You've got amazing experience and knowledge in a lot of areas that have to do with working on personal development. Can you tell us a bit about what you have done? And then we'll talk about relationships.
yeah, sure. So I've kind of got many hats of the psychological mindset, basically. So academia background, degree in psychology. So I can use psychology to more be analytical with therapy, clinical psychotherapy sort of application. So as in groups. So there's more of a dynamic of understanding in communication between people. Then there's the hypnotherapy, so accessing the subconscious mind to really try and delve into what people mean, why they do things, and give people the access to their subconscious to help for them to get through challenges in life as well. CBT, obviously challenging their words to what they say. If there's negative self-talk, how can you really approach that? The NLP side of things, I'm an NLP practitioner. So that's really, how to kind of put challenge exercises forth to go, right, how do I approach this situation? You can apply an exercise to that in order for you to be in a positive mental state to take on challenges. Things like eye accessing cues on how people how to read people, body language, micro expressions. When someone says something, but they actually mean something different, their body language will express a tell, which may not be congruent to what they're actually saying. So you can find internal conflict. So, and there's a few more other things, but they're the kind of major players that I kind of delve into when discussing anything with, when I'm doing therapy, basically.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you have got a wealth of personal experience and also professional learning that you use to help other people. Now, today we said that we were going to talk about romantic sexual relationships and let's say the best, most effective things that you find get people out of their patterns, out of their issues, out of what keeps them stuck, causes them pain, hurt, and suffering. Yes. And we said we were going to talk about these things. So you start wherever you want to start. What do you find in 2023 is really, really helpful to ease that suffering and difficulty?
Yeah, well, number one, I would say is, you do not understand the opposite gender. First off, males don't understand females and vice versa. It's, you try and do a mind read on your partner, albeit what sexual preference. And because the thing is, people don't really know 100% why they do what they do. So if they don't necessarily know what they do sometimes, especially when they're under pressure, let's say, because that's really the baseline of an individual, is when they're under pressure, how they react and respond to, a partner or a situation. It's when they're under pressure. And then when you're trying to understand the other person at the same time as having your own issues, you're trying to juggle two things at the same time, your own understanding and the understanding of the others. Now, the problem is, it's a psychological term. When we project, we're assuming that we know what the other person is thinking when we're in an argument, which is one, probably incorrect, and two, very frustrating for the other person. How many times has someone said, "You don't know what I'm thinking"? Yes, I do. Probably don't, because we're loaded with, a bias towards the other person's intent. So that comes on to what is the other person's intent. if you can be sure that you know the other person's intent's good, then it's an understanding of they've just got it wrong on this occasion. But if you transfer, if you think that the other person's intent is not good, then you're in an argument because you're already loaded up in your mind that they're coming with bad intent. So no matter what they say, you're going to be defensive, attacking with regards to their words. That's the problem because you're already loading up a negative bias in your head. You're not listening, you're just waiting to hit the ball back over the fence at them. That's what you're loading up for. So, so one, it's try and understand where the other person's coming from. That's very easy to do when you're in a logical mindset, by the way. But when you're in an emotional mindset, there's no logic. So it's very hard when you're hurt and you feel attacked, then a lot of the time you're going to either attack or retreat. And if you retreat, then you just don't say nothing. But saying nothing can sometimes say more than saying something, especially if it's of a passive aggressive nature. So there's many challenges between couples, albeit what your sexual preference is, because it's still, different mindsets. It's still, where's the other person coming from? So in order to help with these situations, it really is a case of counting to 10. And because you start off with, if you're insulted by something the other person said, the other person, if they've got good intent, they've just said something that they didn't mean. They might have thought it was in jest. They might think it was funny. But if it doesn't align with the other person's values and beliefs and they think it's an insult, all of a sudden they get very defensive, very emotional, only for the other person to say, oh, it's only a joke. But then when they feel attacked, then they go into an emotional state and then you're in trouble because, these frustration leads to anger. Anger leads to words, which, like I say, once they come out, if they're hurtful words, it's like toothpaste, you can't put it back in the tube. The words are now out there, you can apologize. But unfortunately, the brain does record everything, especially the subconscious. And some of these words can stay with that other person, even though you've apologized. And you might find they're used, as they say in law, anything you say can and will be used against you, further along the line. And I think, some people more than others will bring that up again, especially if you don't talk about it there and then it gets registered in the library of, anger. It will only come out later on. So it's good to seek for an understanding. I think the phrase is seek to understand, then to be understood. But like I said, it's very easy to do that when you're in a logical state. So what do you do to help yourself get into a logical state, therefore? So initially, you're in an emotional state. Everybody's going to hit an emotional state when they're upset, feel attacked, or whatever the case is. So have a conscious awareness that you're in an emotional state. And then you may have to take 10 seconds. You may know you have to take an hour. You may be aware that you're in an emotional state. And that the next things that you say that come out your mouth could really be detrimental towards the relationship. So really stop yourself, even though you really want to get those words out because you're being attacked and you want to attack or defend, and just hold tight for a while. Really think about what you're going to say next. Really think about what the person said to you. Really think how they've said it and who they are. Because if you were in a good place with these people and you're just having an argument, let it be just an argument, not a chance to have a personal attack on the other person. Because once you go into name calling, once you go into any thoughts of, swear words or cursing or anything else, disrespectful comments, they're very hard to draw back once you've made those personal comments. So it is a case of take the time for the response. And when the response comes, try and stick to what the facts are of the case, if possible. Think to things that are actually real, why you were offended, why you felt, sort of that you would be defensive. But what are they? Really think, are they? Because the problem is once you get into an argument, you get sidetracked. And then the actual point of the argument, that's over, that's now gone. Now you're arguing about the way you're arguing. And what starts off something small, which could be something easily solved if you could just take 10 seconds and go, probably didn't mean that way. So let me just ask a minute, and let me just keep this calm. Let me not raise my voice, because in NLP, there's a mirroring match. If someone's shouting, unless you're really super cool, you're going to come up to their level of shouting, then you're going to get nowhere. So it is a case of trying to stay, calm and reflective, as opposed to go on the attack as well.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be submissive. You don't need to give in. You just need to be able to state your point clearly so someone else can understand.
It's like you end up sometimes, it's like you say, it's not even about what the thing started about. It's like you trigger each other's childhoods and the old wounds of whatever happened back then. And this is it's like another photocopy of all of that. But now you're an adult and you've got adult words. You're able to, go in and defend or attack or whatever, like you say. And it's like you can't get to a resolution when you are in your own old stuff. It takes time to, well, firstly, understand that that's happening. Often it's separating and going and thinking about it and then coming back with a cooler head and saying, look, I thought about what you said and, it wasn't my intention to do this or that. And, can we let this go? Do you need to say anything else? And it's almost like you've got to be more mature and adult about how you have arguments or how you have disagreements. And it's self-control is a massive thing, isn't it?
Of course. Because once you're in an argument, you don't want to resolve the situation. You want to hurt.
Yeah.
You want those big blows to hit home.
Yeah.
And that's very dangerous. That's really dangerous. That happens when you get to that point.
Now, you and I talked about, before we started recording, about watching relationship shows. And I watched the Jewish Matchmaker series and the Indian Matchmaker series. And you said you watched
the UK one. Actually, it's American. I watched American blind. I think it's a blind date where they put them in the cubicles and they don't see each other.
Okay.
And obviously they've got to get to know each other through the wall.
Yeah.
American viewers are screaming at the screen right now. They know exactly which one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So the guys are all in one room. They go into the cubicles. The women go into the cubicles, but they get to talk to each other. And it's about communicating with someone's personality as opposed to seeing them. And then the idea is then, this is sort of the concept of it, that they propose to each other, or the male proposes to the female, whatever the case is. And then they get engaged, they come out, they propose again, and then they kind of go through this experiment of getting to know each other. Up until they got 3 weeks then, up until the day of the wedding, to say whether they want to marry each other or not. And it's really interesting, the dynamics. It just shows you how the male and female brain are just totally different. And the example we spoke about, if you want me to speak about that one, was whereby they go to each other's places. And this is in the most current show, which I watched. And it was amazing because the guy went to the lady's place, and she'd got her own home. She'd paid for that. She's renovating that. She's got a nice car. So she's kind of got a life set and all put together.
Then they come on to the conversation of, okay, we've got to talk about money because everything else is in a bubble. It's all very well. And I get the impression she's more affluent and set for her life than the guy she's going to marry. So she basically says, what are you bringing to the table? I've got a house, I've got a car, I've got money, my family has got money. How do you see this working out between us two? So he said, well, I'm quite happy to be 50-50. And I think he's got a rented accommodation as well. So he's going to live with her in her home, but albeit she's saying it will be their home, which is very nice. So she said, right, what happens if we go out for a meal? He said, well, we put our cards together, as in credit cards or debit cards or whatever the case is, and we do 50-50 because we're husband and wife. No, she said, that's never happened for me. When I go out with a man, then he always pays. That's always going to be the case. He's always going to pay. So, and he's kind of, you can see he doesn't want to argue with her, but he's kind of thinking we're together, so all things should be together. Which is quite funny, actually, because if you think about it, she's willing to offer him half her house and half of these things, which it far outweighs the cost of a 50-50 on a meal. So we're talking values and beliefs here. So she then visits his place, his bachelor pad, because they've come straight from the experiment. They haven't been to each other's places. So this is the first time I'm finding out quite a lot of things. She goes to his bachelor pad and goes into the bedroom. And he says, oh, by the way, that's the lost and found drawer over there. She's like, what do you mean the lost and found? And what he's alluding to is actually that it's the lost and found of all the girls that have stayed at his apartment. There's earrings in there, there's rings in there and everything else like that. Not the brightest thing to do. I wouldn't say that was a clever thing. It's verging on stupid. That's not going to be impressive. So she just can't believe that. Also, what she picks up on is that he serves with plastic plates and plastic cups, which again perturbs her quite considerably. So you've got, again, you can see these values and beliefs. So what's going on here? Because got to a point, she's in love with this guy. She wants to share the rest of her life with this guy, to a point where she actually walks out. This is almost deal breakers that we're dealing with here. The guy is absolutely perplexed. He does not understand what's going on here. His point is she's come in to see this lost and found, which, crikey, get rid of it. I mean, and most guys with some sense would get rid of it. But what he's saying is this is my life before. I want to be open, I want to be transparent, and I want to be honest with you and show you everything that went on.
Yeah.
So we talk about good intent. I truly believe he had good intent, albeit stupid. He's got good intent, to be open, honest, and transparent, because maybe that's his values and beliefs, to be open, honest, and transparent of, this was me. This is not going to be me, but you come to see my place in all of me, and this is all of me. Anybody with any sense would have just got rid of the lost and found, and it would never have existed, and you'd have got a place set up. So she's going, why did you leave that? You knew I was coming. Why did you leave that there? So to her, values and beliefs, it's probably coming that it's disrespectful. Now she's the woman in his life. Why has he still got stuff with other women? Why has he still got that? She's now drilling down deeper, because what she said was there were pictures at her place, but she got rid of them all. And again, to her, the values and beliefs is that, she is disrespectful. But however, where's her mind? Her mind is, he's now number one. She wants to also be number one. We don't ever want to think that our partners were ever with anybody else before. We don't want to think that. We want to think that they've solely met us and we're the only ones they've ever met and we're the only ones they've ever think about. So to come in with Lost and Found, and her imagination just went wild on who are these other girls? Why is he still thinking about these other girls? Why is he leaving things in the flat representing these other girls when his mind should solely be on her? Where he's coming from, honesty, transparency, and he thought it was a good thing. There was no way he would leave that there expecting that response. So you can see the different angles. Her, obviously, with the meal thing, it's that, she wants her man to be a man. She wants to be looked after. In this respect, she wants to be respected. And it's probably not the money. It's just what it represents when they go out. I don't think for in it that she's coming from, go digger or anything, because she's actually set up. So why is it important for her then, therefore, for him to pay? What's that element of being, his woman is such? It really goes back to sometimes really old-fashioned values. Now, some people have got them, some people haven't. What I'm saying is that really you need to find out what the values and beliefs are between each other. And, if they could easily resolve that, if he actually said, because if he come with, that was not my intent. Really, what that represented was my trueness to you, my honesty to you, my transparency to you. I'm wrong. And I'm really sorry, I got it so wrong, but that was not my intent. Do you see what I mean when you go back to intent?
Yes.
And again, she could go, look, I'm not out for you to pay for anything. I got my own life. I'm doing very well, thank you very much. But if you're going to be my guy, be my guy.
Yeah.
And that's what it represents. And again, the plastic cups and the plastic plates, we're not at a kiddies picnic party now. Be an adult. I want you to be the man. We're not going to be eating off plastic plates and plastic cups. This is what these things represent. There's sometimes, it's Gestalt's theory of the Christmas tree lights. It's that you think the one light is gone off, but actually they're attached to all the other lights and all the other ones. And so it's at the tip of the iceberg really does those representative items or, situations. It's kind of unfair because you're expecting the other person to immediately know what your values and beliefs are.
Yeah.
There lies the problem. That's why you need communication. That's why you go, right, on the one behalf, this really upset me because of this, and this. Then the other person can understand because they know what to work with. And they go, I just saw them as cups and plates. I didn't think it was a big deal. Yeah, but what it represents for me is that you're not quite grown up yet. Because to me, represent, kind of if you're going to entertain anybody, then put some effort into it. It means this, and this, and we are guys at the end of the day. I mean, very simplistic within thoughts. So, you've got to understand, but it's when the other person assumes you know what their values and beliefs are, or you should know what those values and beliefs are. People don't. As much as he's confused why she's kicking off, she's confused why he doesn't realize why she's kicking off. There's a lot back and forth going on, but they're new to each other. You can see they get on with each other, and it's a shame when you see these disconnects happening when it's really unnecessary. But it's the skills and the tools to know how to communicate, and therein lies the breakdown, and that's why people like you and I exist.
Yes. Do you think in that particular case do you think it's depends on what age bracket you're in? Do you think that matters?
Well, I think women are 10 years more mature than men anyway. I really do. you know, just by, you know, just by way of decades, as it were. So I think there is, you know, that's only my personal opinion.
Okay.
So he's thinking of presenting a dinner party with plates and cups and, you know, and everything, all the right cutlery. You know, he's still with plastic cups and plates. I mean, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, you know, I wouldn't put a dinner party on with unless I was entertaining 3-year-olds.
Yeah, or at a picnic. Yeah, that's quite
Yeah.
funny. It's definitely quirky, but I can see what you're saying. It's
Are you still trying to be I don't know where sometimes guys go with thinking they're entertaining women by saying how many women they've met with, how many women they've been with, that they're Jack the Lad and everything else. And you can just see them digging themselves deeper and deeper and thinking, you might be impressing your mates down the pub with this talk, but you're certainly impressing your missus with this. You're just digging yourself a hole deeper and deeper and deeper.
And I do think that, I will say, the majority of women, the self-security is easily disrupted. And that's something that us as women need to work on. I mean, I look back and think, you know, the reactions that I had to things about other women, say in my 20s, whereas, you know, in my 40s, I dated a guy, and him and I would go to his ex-wife's place for dinner because she had an amazing Chilean family and they cooked amazing meals. Her and I are still friends to this day. You know, there was no, the evolution of security changed, and this is another human being that if he went out with her and then he went out with me, there's a good chance we've got some qualities in common, and that became a beautiful friendship. So it can be, yes, I understand what you're saying about him leaving that stuff and her having a reaction, but I also think if women can meet halfway and say, you know, people do have a past before me, but that past has actually brought them to this point where they are now in the state that they're in to be with me, that all those people before me have assisted this human being to evolve and mature and become a greater human being because of the lessons learned. I mean, I think that is such a you don't feel you don't have to feel threatened by stuff.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
That's right.
And women, I think that's a great thing for us to work on. Okay, you had a girlfriend. Okay, you had a child with someone else. Okay, you had your first high school sweetheart and you thought you were going to get married. And you look and you go, I've had some of those things too. So do I think about those people now? Not really, you know, unless I'm going through old photos or something. But these people have made me into who I am today, and I am a better human being because I've had to overcome a lot of lessons because of those relationships. And I think, you know, that whole thing of other women are a threat does not need to be. It is a collective consciousness, but it doesn't have to be. You can pull the plug out of that and say, you know what, they're just other women, they're just other people, they have the same loves, fears, anxieties, issues that I have, and we're all trying to just do our best along the way. I think that is such a nice exhale for women if we can get to that point. And it takes time, it does, because we're naturally, you know, not secure human beings in our teenager years and in our 20s, unless you've had amazing parenting where people really taught you to be secure, and that was a focus. Which you and I know from working with people, that's definitely in a small minority, but you can develop that as you get older. You can improve on it. You can see other women as beautiful creatures rather than a threat, you know, and that honestly, that makes life so much easier in your head, so much easier.
Yeah, I think if she, I think the start, because they're very much in their infancy of getting to know each other. If there were, I think we'll probably find out why that really hit a chord with her, with the loss of the friend. I think probably things will start to happen. Generally, with things that have happened in the past, with maybe negative relationships or someone who's cheated or whatever the case is. And, you know, because if she was, you know, secure, like you said, there weren't so many triggers, because there must be some triggers, she'd have said, you idiot, get rid of the box. Why you still got that? Really, you're pissing me off. Get rid of it. You know, that would have been, and you would have done that. You'd have just said, well, that's stupid. You can get rid of that for starters, because that's history now. I can't believe you know, and that's it. But it really, if you watch it, it really did trigger. And you know, there's tests. I think when people meet as well, they put people through tests, and I've seen this a lot. It's almost like they are self-sabotaging something good. So they got something good, they can't believe it's good. Now they have to self-prophesize that this can't be good. So then they go into sabotage mode. And you know, it's what I call the SHIT test. They start doing that. They start testing, as it were. And I watched another show, another example. I like watching these shows, you know, it's part of my research.
Yes.
Whereby this couple Married at First Sight UK. So that's another one. And so they've got married. Obviously, they don't see each other until they get married. You know, but they do see each other, but they don't do, you know, they're getting to know each other. And then they go on honeymoon. And so this one woman, they're all getting on. She lures him in. She actually says, so how would you think if I started to do, you know, maybe some, you know, like these adult content on, I always keep forgetting what it is. It's Friends thingy or whatever. There's a certain thing now where, you know, women go on and I don't know what they're doing, probably some adult content, but in a softer way. And what's it called? It's called OnlyFans. There you go. OnlyFans. So,
never heard that.
Yeah. It's a little bit X-rated where, you know, sort of women are going on there, you subscribe and they're doing all these things. So anyway, she alludes to it that what if she did OnlyFans or something of adult content online? Now, he's got two ways to go with this, okay? Option A, he's going to be the supportive, modern, liberated guy, and he's going to say, whatever you want to do, I'll support, you know, because I'm secure and everything else. And if you want to do that, if that's what you want to do, because she framed it in her tonality was, what if I'd like to do this? You know, how would you be with that? So it's kind of, you know, you can see where I'm getting the testing from now, okay? Or option B, well, I wouldn't be happy with that. You know, I don't want, you know, any partner of mine going online and doing adult content. It's not what I want. I don't want that out there. I don't want you doing it, and I'm not going to allow you to do it. Which would kind of be, which could come across maybe controlling or maybe or whatever the case is. So you can see him balancing out, you know, in his head. Oh, you know, so he goes with option A, thinking it'll be more supportive, you know, non-controlling, liberated, modern man. Wrong answer. She switches then and says, that's not the kind of guy I want to be with. I wouldn't want you to have, you know, to give me permission to go online and do that. What husband really wants their partner to be doing adult content online? That means you don't really respect me. That really, you know, and she proper set him up. He doesn't want her online doing adult content. You can see the type of guy he doesn't want. However, it actually turns out that he does a little bit of, it's really weird. I couldn't quite work it out. So he does these exercises. I don't know what he does, but he mentioned that he does squats online and people request he does it at different angles. So I don't know, maybe he had a hidden agenda of what he wanted permissions for, you know. So it all was a little bit bizarre. But she didn't know that up until that point. So, you know, he went for the supportive role and he got, and he keeps getting into trouble. It's quite hilarious, actually. But you can see, and this is tests, you know, you go into sort of tests at the start as well of, right, can I challenge this person with rhetorical questions, hoping they give you the answer, or maybe not, because then you go, haha, I knew this wasn't as good as it was supposed to be. You know, you were pretending or whatever the case is. So there's complications at the start. So I think people are trying to work out the other person at the same time. I think later on, once you've got the trust and emotion of the other person, then you stop the testing and you go, right, I'm exhausted. We keep testing this person. They've passed my test now. I'm good to go. So I think there's an element of that when people and try and push it as far as they can to see what they can get away with. I think that's kind of human nature also. So it's one or the other to keep calm and go, okay, I noticed some of these things.
Yeah, and everybody has, you know, each to their own. They all have different levels of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And
that's
you know, it's it's a mixed bag of nuts, as they say. It could definitely, that's a really good example, actually. It's a really good example because he went against his instinct to do what he wanted to do, and then it backfired.
Yeah, I know. And that's why really you just got to be true to yourself.
Yes.
Just go, in the ideal world, I wouldn't like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's and we're all different, you know, what's okay and what's not. And as long as you find
she might have gone, oh, fantastic, great. I'm really happy that you support me, because a lot of men haven't really wanted me to do it, but it's my passion, it's what I do, and you know, rah rah rah. But that's why. Then he found himself apologizing for going for that option, and that actually didn't want that option. He wanted the other option. But now the other person's confused because now are they saying it to appease them? You know, and they go, oh no, but I wanted that option instead. You know,
I just didn't want to be controlling or to appear controlling because I want you to feel free to do the things you want to do. But that's crossing the line. So it's that's a good one, isn't it? I mean, it is. It's fascinating watching these types of shows from a research point of view, because you learn so much about what works, what doesn't work, what you have a reaction to when you're watching it.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's good. So lots of good information. If you were someone who was struggling in a relationship right now and you were having reoccurring patterns and you were thinking, I know I need to work on myself, but I don't know where to start, what would you suggest people start on?
Getting the chatter out their head, first of all, because, you know, your own self-talk is because the brain catastrophizes, so it goes to worst case scenario to defend you for worst case scenario, you know, and that's where I think people like you and I come in, because we will be non-opinionated. We'll be able to have a logical, disassociated perspective on the situation. We'll be able to help the person with their words, that their self-talk, which, you know, a belief is something you believe in which isn't necessarily true. You know, challenge those words, challenge those thoughts, look at a situation, be able to evaluate a situation, take into consideration the other person as well that they've got a relationship with, in order to go, right, well, maybe this is their perspective, that's your perspective. There's three truths. There's your truth, their truth, and the truth. So, you know, that's where somebody comes in and, you know, listens, really.
Yes.
Because the thing is, the reason why they're reoccurring patterns is because you don't necessarily know they're reoccurring patterns or why they're happening. So you need challenging, you need rewiring, because don't forget, neuronal pathways get hardwired. So you will keep doing the same thing over and over and over again until there's a way it's explained to you in such a way where you can understand by investigating those pathways and going, right, okay, I see. And the penny needs to drop. But the penny needs to drop with the individual, not with us. That's the thing. Because, other people talking at people, they have to, you need to help them, enabilize them to investigate their own subconscious in their mindset as to why they are making reoccurring, mistakes, patterns, problems. And that might not be them, it might be the person they're choosing, because you find they always go for a certain template of person, even though they're the wrong person, but that wrong person may represent what they think is love. But because sometimes love can be misinformed as attention. And it comes in two forms: bad attention, good attention. But in childhood, they had a bit of a traumatic history, and they got attention through whether it's their bad behavior or their parents' bad behavior in order for them to have communication, albeit negative or disruptive, that they still had attention. Whereby he comes into their life who isn't that disruptive, and is very calm about things, not so argumentative, and therefore doesn't give them attention per se, then they think that person doesn't care. But if somebody is very hostile with them, always arguing with them, always being bad to them, they're still getting attention, which in effect then represents love. Getting attention. So it's a case of going, right, okay, well, let's challenge what the attention was. Was positive or negative attention, and what to them represents love. Is, challenge them on what represents love, what defines as attention, and then go, right, what do you want in the future as regards to attention and love? What is your definition of that upon reflection of historical communications and experience that you've had in the past? Let's investigate that. Okay, now what do you believe would be your ideal love and attention, or what do you think would be a positive view on ideal love and attention? What would be a positive way? Okay. And then really address that, and then go, okay, well, what type of person then, what accreditation, what kind of attributes would they need to be in order to have positive intention and love? How would that person look? How would they be? How would you be able to acknowledge that person now once you met that person? Because you need to know how and how that looks, and how that sounds, and how that feels, because it's a different way of what you've had previously. You have to use your conscious mind now to go into your subconscious, have a little dwell around there, dip into that, find out what's what, and come back to the conscious to work it out, and then apply it. It's all about taking.
Nice. So Jason, when you work with people, do you do like a combination of all the different things that you've learned depending on what someone comes to you with?
That's exactly it. You can go, right, is this a psychological thing? Is this a, psychotherapy? Is this NLP? Do I need to challenge their words with CBT?
Just explain to people what CBT is.
So cognitive behavioral therapy. It's about really how, say, for example, someone will say, well, everybody says I'm clumsy. Okay, so who's everybody? Give me some names. And they might be able to name one person. Well, this isn't everybody then, is it?
Yeah.
So you do a word challenge on their own self-talk. Well, what is it they're actually saying to themselves? How do they think about themselves? How do they think about people who think about them? What is it? What are the words? There's a thing of maladaptive thoughts and erroneous beliefs. It's, they think in a negative way. They have, very disruptive beliefs as well. So you need to challenge those really. So it depends. You use different psychological disciplines in order to address, because people come with, different challenges, and it's okay. Well, we can apply this. We can apply some NLP. We could, a little bit more. Use and normalize it by going into sort of empirical evidence of, these were studies that happened. This is what happens. And again, another psychological term, normalizing. Well, you're not the only one. Okay, I can tell you there's a group of people out there who also are in a very similar situation to yourself. So, it's like great, because they think they're the only person going through it.
Yeah.
For the rest of their life, whereby only now, and this, there's great Churchill quotes like, "This too shall pass," or "If you're going through hell, keep going." Just because you can meet another person, you can change your mindset, you can change your outlook on things, and you can take action, and you can make things happen. And there's millions of stories out there of people who have come from very adverse conditions and now living, their best lives, and they're
that's it.
Probably more traumatic than than a lot of people who think they're going through a traumatic event.
Do you think that when you choose someone to go to, as in a coach, a counselor, a psychologist, psychotherapist, do you think it's good to know whether they themselves are actually got their own relationship stuff sorted?
I think the thing is, what to me is it's therapeutic alliance. It's really, when the person comes to me, it's all about them. And I think sometimes if they don't know too much, then, because I'll give you an example. If a person goes to their friend, let's say, and they know a lot about their friend, they're already projecting, and they're thinking, if I tell this person this, they're going to think that. So I think if you go to a therapist who can do the job, and secondly, that you get on with when you meet. There's always that therapeutic alliance of over time build a good rapport. But I think a therapist needs to come with a blank slate and really take on what the person's about and how best to support and help them manage their situations. And because I think that's the problem when you go to a friend or you go to somebody that the problem is you're not only thinking about your own problem, you're thinking about how you're telling that problem, because you think that other person already has it. So if they come with a challenging response and they're a friend or family as such, it's like, oh, I knew you'd say that, why did I bother waste my time? Whereas, you come to someone, like us, like I said, no opinion, no bias. We're purely there to help without a view on it. And I think that's to let people be able to get the chatter out of their head in a free, safe space is unlike any other. So I think it's really good, but that's just my opinion. I want to go to a therapist who've had trials and tribulations and they really understand because they've gone through it. But, that's fine. But, that could come with biases because they, right, well, this is now my opinion on it because I've been through it. As opposed to, so there's no right or wrong. There's always differences. But I always pride myself on, I don't come with opinion, I don't come with any view or any sort of bias or any projections or any transference at all. I solely work with, my clients to go, okay, let me listen, in the best way I possibly can, based on your circumstances, not circumstances I've had per se. We've got experience, we've got knowledge and everything else, but my experience, my knowledge and my academia actually then approaches and works with their situation. It doesn't work with my situation then to project onto their situation and merge within that. That's not where I come from.
Yeah.
My initial studies actually come from sales. What got me onto the path of this was within sales, it's all psychological, and it's how you communicate with people. And I was fascinated with how you can be so effective in order to communicate. And, you know, really, if you've got something good, like at the time in sales, I had something really good which would really benefit and improve people's quality of life. So really, if they didn't embark on what I had, I felt I was doing them a misservice because I knew it would be good for them. You know, I knew it would improve their quality of life. And so if they left without embarking on that service, it was a health service, then I hadn't communicated it properly. Because to me, it was a no-brainer what I was actually, you know, providing. And what I found was, you know, training up in sales and, you know, as a heavy psychology, basically, and the effectiveness of that good communication in order for other people to benefit, I thought that just blew me away. So then I thought there's something in this psychology, and I can really help others with this effective communication. So that's what really spurred me on to go into, you know, even philosophy, you know, psychology, and all these other disciplines, to help people communicate effectively, but really come with that blank slate of, I haven't gone into it because I wanted to sort stuff out for myself and then help others. I went into it as purely that I was just fascinated by communications between humans.
That's wonderful, because it's kind of been a domino effect for you since that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, more and more. And it is fascinating going into all sorts of different
It is. And then I went
nooks
into
and crannies to learn.
Yeah, and I tried everything first. I thought, oh, hypnotherapy, how does that work? So I went and had hypnotherapy. It was fantastic. I was like, right, I'll become a hypnotherapist. Applied for, you know, as a clinical hypnotherapist. And then, you know, NLP, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Right, I'm going to qualify as an NLP practitioner. And every discipline I tried first of all. You know, I'm even a Reiki practitioner as well, you know, because I like the energies because we emit an energy. Obviously, going into science with MRI scans, that proves that we emit an energy. Quantum physics, I looked at that as well. So I looked at the science side of things. I looked at sort of the spiritual side of things. I looked at how we emit energies and how we get on with other people, why we like some people, why we don't feel comfortable with other people. And all this communication, not only mindset, but also body, energy, and everything else. Interested and fascinated by all spectrums. And so over the years, just, you know, just keep on, you know, doing stuff, really.
The endless rabbit hole. It is so interesting, this topic, and it's so helpful with, you know, work relationships, family relationships, romantic sexual relationships. It goes into all of these areas. Now, if someone wants to get a hold of you to discover more of what you're doing, you've got what platforms, or what, you've got a website? How do people find you?
Right, okay. Well, these will be coming on Wednesday. Is that right? Yeah, we'll be launching because you know, because it was great. It was opportunistic that I got to speak to you, and I wanted to speak to you as soon as possible because I know you're busy and going away and everything else like that. So I wanted to get hold of you before, you know, and do this before you went away and everything. But all the contact details will be, all the platforms, because I'm just about relaunching myself and my our company called Pathways, and so you'll hear more and more about that. And it's all being launched on Wednesday, so exciting.
Okay.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, what I'll do in the meantime, I will put up whatever you give me, an email address or something, so people can just contact you in the meantime. And then on Wednesday, when I'm flying to Los Angeles, and you launch, send me the links and I'll drop them in. And I'm also going to drop in down in the description below the other interviews that we did, because they were wonderful and they were relationship related as well, for anyone that wants to hear a bit more meat on the bone.
Right, next time, what I want to talk about is AI and dating apps. Yep.
AI and what?
Dating apps.
Ah, good idea.
Yeah. AI, because I think we're going to have a reverse, we're going to have a alternative ends of the spectrum. We're going to have AI where it dehumanizes communication between humans. But I think there's also going to be a new drive on going back to actually face-to-face human contact.
Yeah.
I think it may propel it the other way, where people are going to start to actually really want human connect again. Because there's a massive disconnect wave that's coming. And I think, you know, because you can look at it two ways, AI. You can look at it as a machine that's going to attack you, or a machine you can control and use.
That's it.
I always want the machine that, you know, you can control and use for good.
For sure. Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I did a little experiment of probably 2 or 3 months ago, and I asked ChatGPT what are the top 3 most effective techniques to start a brand new relationship. And then I did the same thing for if you want to date a specific person, because that's a hot topic on this channel. And it was really interesting what it came back with, and it wasn't that different to what I would have said. And it even mentioned the self-love work within the answer. So I was pleasantly surprised that AI, obviously because it's collecting from all sorts of different resources and then picking the best, it was in line with the work that we do with people. So that was really a nice surprise to see that, like you're saying, you can work in conjunction with it, and it can be really, really effective as a tool to get to the pinpointed answers, the pinpointed results, the pinpointed information more quickly. And I love that. I think that's very useful.
Well, that's it. Because if you solely depend on it, you're going to become an avatar. So when you go on apps and everything else, you know, you can go ChatGPT, write me a good introduction, you know, write me a good conversation to this person. But then what do you do when you meet in person? Do you then put into ChatGPT in front of them and just communicate with your phones? You know, what happens when you actually have to converse? So, you know, there is a link, there is a connect, but I think there's going to be a lot of need for human connection and the skill, even more so now, on communication between humans. Because ultimately, you will need to meet the other person.
That's it. That's it.
Where they've got these sort of love dolls or whatever the case is, but unless they can actually give birth to a living creature, then you're going to be stuck at that point, you know, because the joke is you can have an AI that looks exactly how you want them to look. They never argue with you. They're always amazing. They're always complimenting you and everything else. And also you can see how that can create a demand for that. You can actually see that, you know, that companionship, what the case is, because they're becoming so advanced. But actually, you know, then how do you have children, sort of thing? Does that then become the demise of the population, or does it then catapult us into going, we need what we're going to do when we meet? And I think there needs to be something on, you know, that communication, then the art of communication, because it's something that can be taken for granted, whether you're good at it, whether you're not. But if it's to then minimalize and almost diminish, what happens when you do need to meet up? Will you then just talk through your phones? So I think there will be a push for real world, you know, skill sets.
I don't know if you ever heard of the series Love Me, Love My Doll.
No. Oh, but I can imagine what that is. Yeah.
It was the most interesting series. And they're selling, I mean, you mail order these dolls and you get the exact measurements, the skin color, the hair. Anyway, these things were selling for like £8,000.
Yeah.
And people, and some people had a lot of hurt and wounds that they couldn't get past from past relationships, and they didn't want to step back into a human to human relationship. So this was like the next thing that they were doing. And some of them had 2 or 3 of these dolls that were unbelievably made to look incredibly realistic. Anyway, I found that, like watching the Jewish matchmaking and all these relationship series, this was another one that was really interesting from a research point of view. It was fascinating.
Well, if you think, going back years, it's hot. Say if you've got an old table, right, which is battered, you'll throw it away, But unless you're a hoarder, but if it's an old teddy bear, which you have an emotional attachment with, it could have missing eyes, missing legs, but you're less likely to throw it away.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's right.
Emotional attachment, or if you catch your leg on the corner of a table, you'll actually start swearing at the table. And I can't remember what the psychological term is, but we humanize objects. We can humanize objects. So you can see how this, AI, and it's only going to get more and more advanced. It's going to actually start to look like humans, and the intellect there, because they're already saying. I watched a podcast with Stephen. What was his name, Mick? Stephen, the podcast. So I've got I've got Mick here. Stephen, he's very popular at the moment, this young chap. And he was having a podcast with Stephen Bartlett was having a podcast with this guy who's a Google mastermind, and he was saying that AI is very dangerous and everything else. Already they've got an AI brain which is 1 billion times the IQ of Einstein. So if they can start to replicate human emotions and everything else, and start to the words of this podcast was basically that they can think for themselves. If they can think for themselves and their IQ is already 1 billion to the times of Einstein, then they're going to be a lot smarter than us, as it were. But again, it's like I said, it's a case of how do you use it? How do you benefit? And it was really, whether it's coming from a good place or a bad place, with good intent or with bad intent. That's the danger of AI. So
it's no different. It's no different to humans, really, in that regard.
Different to humans. So again, so it's looking at, the pros and cons, the benefits, how can you utilize it. Ultimately, if you do strive for human connect and the AI doll isn't for some reason sort of doing it for you, how can you use that research and communication? How can you better yourself to communicate? There are ways that you can do it, because from what my understanding of AI, what I found with it is it needs a human to put in a question of some sort. You then wait for the response, and then a human to articulate that or use knowledge and experience to go, that's not quite right, but you're almost there. I just need to tweak it a little bit. But it really helps, and I think that's what you've just really said. You put something in, come back, you go, something similar, but now I'll put my experience, knowledge, and adaptation to this as an act. And so it's a useful tool.
That's good. So we'll do another part, like dating and AI. That sounds wonderful. That'll be definitely a topic that people are interested in at the moment, because it's why not? Well, thank you. Dear Jason in London. We're both in London at the moment.
Fantastic. Yes. If you put my email, people can email me. To respond, and Wednesday I'll have all the links for you, and we'll be putting things on the likes of TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. You can ask more questions, see updates, etc. And like I said earlier, the good thing about you and I is that I can come from a male perspective, you can come from a perspective. So that's really interesting for people as well, to get sort of both too. We've got good understandings of every, you know, type of gender around us, but we're
Yeah.
going to have a bias on our sort of perspective because that's how we're wired.
That's it. That's it. Well, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining Jason and I. If you would like to book a session with Jason or contact him or say something down in the thread of this YouTube interview, you can put your little comments down there. So I will say goodbye. And Jason, do you want to just say goodbye to everyone and then we can say bye in private?
Yeah, thanks everyone for, you know, it's always precious with people's time. It's the most precious and valuable commodity. So I really appreciate when somebody, you know, especially if you've got to this part, that means you've watched it all.
That's it. That's it.
Thank you very much. And yes, thank you very much. You know, it's always a pleasure speaking to you. And, you know, so that's amazing. And good luck.
Likewise. Thank you, everyone. And I will have everything down in the description for you. And I will see you in the next YouTube. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.